And so Uncle John would have a cow, Uncle Jim would have hogs, and of course they would have chickens and eggs. And whenever they would harvest something, they trade. It was a barter system, and because the community was dependent on itself to survive. There was no outside resources for them, or limited outside resources. And that's the way our community needs to go back to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's so right, man.
Because right now,
I thought that when King them did all that, getting us together, going to school with them, I think that took a lot away from us.
Let's see, the thing is, Malcolm X gave a speech in Chicago that talked about segregation and what he wanted segregation to be. He wanted separate and equal. He didn't want.
Right.
He didn't want.
Right.
He didn't want what the final version was to turn out to be. Where it wasn't equal.
Yeah, no.
He wanted us to be separate, but yet still be responsible for educating ourselves and not be dependent on a system that was not run by us, that wouldn't even allow us to vote into it, to set the definition for what we were going to get out of it. So that wasn't the program that he wanted.
That's why he did. That's why they killed him.
Right, absolutely. And of course, the direct comments that he had on Vietnam and our involvement in Vietnam, hit directly to their dollar signs, because that was a money war for them. That was our first money war. And of course, to me, that showed their value of human life, because that was the first. Either talk about Vietnam, let's talk about Iraq, which is a money war. We had no involvement. We had no reason to be involved in Iraq. But you bring in Halliburton and things like that.
Right, they ain't done me nothing.
Right.
Now I'm going over there. They ain't done me nothing. They never called me a nigga.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, but those are the values that I was given growing up. There was a song written by Lou Rawls in 1967 called "Dead End Street," and I think that's my theme song, because I was one of the 2-bedroom house on the dead end street. And my grandmother would always, motivate me to, look up to the sky, because look at God's definition look at God's limitations, which is infinity. Those should be your limitations. So that's the gist of my story. Well, everything, the whole concept of going to your neighbor's house for a cup of flour or a cup of sugar when you were out, that started with our communities. Because sometimes we would literally run out, because we couldn't go to a Safeway or a Kroger, because on a certain day of the week, because we weren't allowed into it, we were segregated. And some of the trials and tribulations that we went through, we've forgotten because we've never had any experience with it. So that's the gist of it. Well, number one, I think it's going to take a correction. We're going to lose something. We're going to sacrifice something, because right now we're way too comfortable. We think we belong. To be honest with you, I think that we think we're playing the game. And see, I gave a speech in Marlin a couple of months ago, and I asked them, I said, what's the difference between chess and checkers? They're both played on the same board with different pieces. You think you're playing a certain game when your competition is playing another. The majority of our society is playing chess, because they control the income, they control the money, they control the wealth. We think we're playing a game because we can buy $200 tennis shoes, but our name is not on any building that's making those tennis shoes. Our problem is financial literacy. We don't understand money. We invest in stocks and things like that, but we don't understand what they do. We don't understand, when they send us that proxy statement to vote our shares, we don't know what that means, because we don't know how to ask the board of directors for a bylaws of exactly what that vote means. So until we get a basic understanding of how money works, because money runs everything, and as long as we continue to allow them to placate us with religion and stuff like that, we won't have any control. We've been so interested since segregation to run with the Joneses, I always think that the grass is green on the other side of the street, that we're blind, we have blinders on. And so, and there again, it's hard to make, it's hard to write a budget. It's hard to hold yourself accountable to your monetary means. Because right now, when you consider that, and this is years ago, this is back when I was in Arkansas, that 90% of the wealth in this country, the actual money that was exchanging hands, was coming from the black community. You know, at one point, the wealth held in the black community constituted the 8th largest economy in the world. Think of that. The wealth held in the black community in the United States constituted the 8th largest economy in the world. What kind of control can we have over that? What kind of control could we facilitate with that amount of wealth under our control? But when you don't have direction, then you're led.
Brainwashing their people still.
Now, of course, back in the early 70s and the 80s when we had the internet, all the information that you need is out there. My thing is, always make sure you ask the second question. Don't be willing to take, you know, the first salesperson that comes up to you and sells you a bridge in Brooklyn. Find out more about something before you jump into it. Because there's a crook behind every corner. And until we learn the questions to, learn how to justify something. Okay, say for instance, if I'm going to buy a car, okay, and the guy tells me that this car gets, 40 so many miles to the gallon, you'll never need an oil change. If he sells you something that might be too good to be true, guess what? It might be too good to be true. We need to start educating ourselves to the point. And there again, if I know that the average fortune, the average millionaire, just basic understanding, if I know that the average millionaire reads 30 books a year, regardless of what subject matter they're on, he reads 30 books a year. I'm going to read 35. I'm going to start holding myself to a higher standard. I can't control what you do. I can control what anyone else in this band does. I can control what game I'm playing. Well, just basic books on economics. Just basic books on, basic books on how our economy got started. Basic history. What's the difference between our economy in England before it transferred over here compared to what was started with when we enacted Congress? Just basic understanding. And there again, I've been one happy to. I do seminars on financial literacy, where I don't ask you for anything. Just come out and be educated on how our money system works. Find resources, regardless of where they are, whether it be books, whether it be internet, whether it be someone like me that's been in finance for 20 years, to come out and talk to you, to educate you on finance, and not to try to sell you something all the time. My name is Richard West. I'm an account executive with the Thomas Marcel Financial Group in Fort Worth. I'll give you my cell number, 870-717-3522, or you can reach out to my office, 817-507-3035. I like the concept because it goes back to where our communities were founded. We have to depend on each other. I've always been touched when I come. It's always something to be joining, not other just black men, but just other men in general that think they share the same struggles that we all have. And being able to learn I like hanging out with older guys to have more experience than me, as they try to keep me from making some of the mistakes that they make. And I like sharing their joys and their pains. We all have experiences, and we all need to share our experiences so we can, say some of the pitfalls that other people might run into. And I don't know if my struggles might affect anyone, or might share similarities to something someone else is going through. But if I can help, shine a little light in that corner of the room, then my purpose has been served. The youth is a whole nother issue, because I think the way we raise our youth in our community changed in the late 70s. Back in the late 70s, there was some child murders down in Atlanta. Okay, there was some, that was the first time that someone had, a serial killer was going after black kids. And I remember at the same amount of time the video games started coming out. Our parents were so terrified by the unknown that they stopped letting us go outside. And they stopped letting us be exposed to things that were educational in our process of growing up. We went outside, we played, we got into arguments, we fought with our friends, we argued, those kind of things. They took that part of our experience away. We got scared. And when we start sheltering us and we start holding us inside, not letting us experience certain things, then I think this is the benefit. This is the result of what we're seeing right now. We're seeing kids that aren't aggressive for what they want. They're given everything. They tend to hold on to mom and dad a little bit too long. They leave. How many times do kids come back home now? How many times do kids have the option of coming back home? So I think we need to go back to raising our kids and stop being friends to our kids and letting them share the experience that are going to help them mature and be beneficial adults instead of beneficial people on the state dollar. That's a great question. I think that's $1 million question. And actually, I don't know. I know that there has to be a change somewhere because right now, I don't see us moving forward. I see us stationary, which is a bad thing. It's easy to hit a stationary target, and when the system is set up to benefit from you, and not to be a benefit to you, then standing still is the worst thing you can do. You have to find a way to move forward, and maybe the first thing to do is stop being afraid. Experiences happen. Learn how to learn from your experiences instead of not trying to avoid them. If that makes any sense. Now, in fact, I had this conversation with my wife. What's the difference between inconvenience and harm? Sometimes we are so afraid of being inconvenienced that we changed the definition and made it that it's something that might harm us. Inconvenience might delay you or might delay your benefit, but it's not any harm. You're not going to break it. You might not break an arm over inconvenience. But if you're harmed, you might consider that a broken arm. So we need to change our definition of what makes us uncomfortable and stop trying to make that something that's life-threatening. It's an inconvenience. That's all it is. So, just a little bit of my life story. 2001, I was engaged on a Wednesday night. I was going to take my wife back to Arkansas to meet my mom for the first time. They'd only talked on the phone. We worked in the same office. And I was in a car accident right outside of Malvern, Arkansas. And she was killed at the scene. And so that was a life-changing experience because during that time, following that, God and I had some tete-a-tete arguments about exactly what my purpose was for leaving me here. And so, and the things that, and see, and there again, even in the hospital, when I thought that, I had lived my course based on some of the things I experienced growing up, he told me that he had a purpose for me. And because I would do it his way, the way he wanted it done, for me to get up, because I was paralyzed on my left-hand side. And so, to think that you would think that I got harmed in that situation, I got inconvenienced in that situation because at the time, I was making $10,000 a month. But I wasn't doing the things that he needed me to do at that time. So he inconvenienced me to benefit him. And that's still the way I look at it today. That's a life experience I'd be willing to share with anyone. Because some of the things that we think are insurmountable circumstances and odds aren't that way at all. They're only inconveniences to get us on the path that he needs us to be on. I think I pulled it in from a lot of places. My grandmother and I were extremely close. Even up to our path, because at the time, I got a degree in chemistry from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And when she was diagnosed with cancer, I was doing cancer research on a co-op program with the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. And so even as I was doing research, I would go to a lab and then come home, and I couldn't help one of the most important people in my life. So that kind of passion, that kind of things, those kind of experiences, like I said, I'm a victim of experience. And so those kind of things I draw on as I motivate other people, as I try to talk to people, whether it be financial strategies, financial literacy, or anything you do, you should have passion behind it. That could be easy or complicated. I don't think it would be based on materialistic means. I think it would be based on a more caring, a more understanding. It's we're the ones that make life complicated. When God created our existence, it was perfect. there was no sickness, there was no stress. None of that existed. When man created ego, that's when we started getting things like fear and greed. When we ate the apple, that's what brought in our suffering. This is our we made this. And so until we go back into about the things that we care about, we should be caring about each other. We shouldn't be caring about materialistic things that don't matter. Right. Well, because we created the ego. See, the ego is life without God. We started living without God. When we thought we could supersede God, that's when we started suffering. Well, because a lot of men have lost their responsibility in the household.
When the government started giving them women that money and everything, it felt like they didn't need man no more. That brought a big problem in the black community.
Well, you're talking about someone that was raised with a single mother who benefited from Title IX back in 1972, where she got. My mom graduated from college in 3.5 years with me, taking me to class, and we couldn't afford a babysitter. And she would drop me off at home, and she would work as a checker at Kroger back in Pound, Arkansas. Okay, and because of Title IX, her manager said, "You plan on being a checker all your life with a college degree?" And literally, he fired her and gave her bus money to the employment office. Luckily, Cotton Belt, Union Pacific Railroad now, was hiring because the railroad had been sued by the federal government under Title IX. They weren't hiring any minorities or women. And so she got on as a swing shift clerk at the railroad. And when she retired 42 years later, she was the 5th highest ranking person on that facility, and the only black yardmaster in the country. And so I think the role of women has its place, but I think also men have responsibility to step up to their duties as well in the household and in the community.
Do you believe the government put that crack out here on the streets?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, they allowed it to happen. They may not have facilitated it, but they allowed it to happen. I have my views on HIV/AIDS. I think that's a man-made disease, instituted by the World Health Organization. That was originally done to, facilitate the gay population, but they didn't account for. First of all, they didn't account for the genetics of a virus, and they didn't account for what I call bisexuals that will sleep with both men and women. So that was just a bad calculation.
Yeah.
But they never thought they would create a virus that could change, that could mutate, when the basis of life is to protect itself. Any living organism will do whatever it can to protect its survival. And a virus is a living organism that changed, that mutated itself to protect itself. I think that after so many generations of living with it, like a common cold, the human body will strengthen itself to defend itself against it. You're still going to lose a percentage because they're going to be weaker individuals, but the strong survive. And that's the same. We are products of nature. Survival of the fittest. That's nature's life. Why chemistry? From the time I was 8 years old, I was going to be a cardiologist. Yeah, and I was on that course to do it until my grandmother got cancer, and I was on co-op in Bethesda when a doctor told me that the majority, the way our medical system is set up, okay, that as soon as something more beneficial or more monetarily, as soon as something makes more money for the system, you'll kind of see other things, kind of get cured all of a sudden. John Wayne died of stomach cancer. Okay, he may have been the last person to die of stomach cancer. I don't know that, but I do know that there were more profitable ailments in the marketplace when that one just kind of got taken out of the way. It got replaced by something that made the system more money. And when the doctor told me that, that was the way the medical system was set up, and there again, you're talking to the mindset of an 18, 19-year-old. I came back and looked at my grandmother, and the thing that my grandmother, who I loved dearly, was being equalized to a line item on the budget sheet for some corporation. I said I can't be a part of a system that's based its way. My grandmother's a line item on a budget statement, a profit and loss report, and to minimize life to that level, I couldn't be a part of a medical system like that. I think that's another system of control. Debt controls. You are hostage to debt. You can't do anything when you're under massive amounts of debt. My son is going to Oklahoma Wesley. $35,000 a year to go to school there. And so when he graduates, if he, there again, we don't have to talk about the reduction of Pell Grants and things like that. But he's going to be looking at $125,000 in student loan debt. That's a basic bachelor's of science degree. If you want to go for a master's or a doctorate, you're looking at $250,000 in debt. What can he do starting off $250,000 in debt before he even gets the star line? If there is a job available for him out there. So how do we deter that? I mean, how do we go? We go back to educating ourselves. And like I told her, all I could show him was how to be consistent, how to be passionate about what you believe in, and number one, find something to believe in. And that kind of thing. Find out. When I would ask him exactly what do you want to be, it's one thing to say what you're going to be, but what have you done to facilitate that? I told you I wanted to be a cardiologist from the time I was 8 years old. In the 5th grade, I dissected a beef heart, a heart from a cow. I dissected one. My mom bought me a scalpel set, a chemistry set, and so I used that to. Had a friend that was a butcher, and I asked to dissect the heart so I could see exactly how a heart would work. I read Gray's Anatomy at 16, just to get a familiarity of what I was going to be getting into. So, if you're going to believe in something, believe in it all the way, be completely committed to it. I think right now at his age and the amount of limited experiences that he said, he doesn't realize it. He's living. And like most youth right now, there's no cost associated with it. They want a car at 16. It's a car. They don't know what the tag means. They don't know what MSRP means. It's a car. LeBron came out with a new pair of tennis, new pair of shoes. There's no cost equalizing it or no sacrifice to it because he didn't earn the money that it takes to buy it. He just sees a new pair of shoes. And say the thing is, when I got started in financial services, I used to make about 350 calls a day, cold calls, calling people that don't know who I am. And it used to be hard for me because I was being told no 90% of the time. And that constant barrage is like a drip method, like a drip torture. That constant barrage of no's made me hesitant to pick up the phone. As soon as I stopped picking up the phone, I stopped eating because I can't earn an income without new customers. So then what I did, I said, okay, if one account is going to make me $100, okay, I started equalizing, exactly what each call that I was making was costing me, whether they said yes or no. If it was going to be a nickel or a dollar, I kind of back programmed my way. So every time I picked up the phone, I knew that regardless of whoever the guy was on the other side of the phone, if he told me yes or no, I knew what it was making. That's how I got over my hesitation from cold calling. We need to, those kids now, when they buy $200 pair of tennis shoes, they need to have some way to value in their own personal lives exactly what that's costing them. What benefit, what sacrifice are they going to make in order to get that value out of those tennis? Like most of my business, whether it be a majority company or minority company, money. Most companies don't have, they reach a ceiling. There's only so much you can do, especially the companies that I work in, mom and pop organizations. Their biggest problem is finding money to keep their inventory satisfied, to keep money, to keep product on the shelf. But the thing is, and the reason they have that issue is because they don't understand fundamentals of money. They don't understand how money works. You know, I could show them a concept called flow. It's the same process that, you know, Warren Buffett used to build a $1 billion company, to where you buy whole life insurance, and you use the maximum value of whole life insurance, and you use that money, the cash value of that life insurance policy, to buy infrastructure, to buy buildings, to buy cars. Every major metropolitan area in the country, in the United States, was built on life insurance. A lot of people don't know that. Every metropolitan area in the country, in the United States, was built on life insurance. You've heard of a golden parachute, okay? Do you think that, let's look at the top 5 countries in the country. Do you think that corporate officers, the president, CEO, secretary, the board of directors of those companies, do you think any of them have a 401k plan? No. The company buys life insurance policies on those guys. $1 million policies. Okay? When they decide to go to another company, or when they start to leave, they'll take the cash value out of their policy, and they'll give that to them to pay off their salaries. Okay? They'll keep the life insurance because we call it deferred compensation. When they pass away, or when they decide to sell that policy off down the road, they have the bulk of their cash lying in the life value, the benefit of their policy. I can show not only small business, I can show individuals how to take one of the biggest problems that I have dealing with black people is because they're trying to play with a set of rules that they don't even use. Why are we going to a bank asking them for money on their rules? Well, I can show you how to finance your own dreams and desires on your set of rules. The problem is, we wait so long to get involved. Everyone should have life insurance policy, a whole life insurance policy. What happens though, we wait, most of the time we wait until we're too young, we're too old, we start getting health issues that makes us uninsurable, and then we can't play that game anymore. We've eliminated ourselves from the game. We start to smoke, we drink, we do things to reduce our value, and therefore we make ourselves uninsurable. Say for instance, you own a company. Okay, you own a company, and you work this company, based on the sweat equity that you put into it. And I said, Bernard, if you're going to retire today, and you're making $250,000 a year, and you're going to retire, how much would you sell me? How much would you sell me your company for? And you say, Richard never thought about it like that before. I'll sell it to you for $1 million. And I say, Bernard, well, when do you want to retire? And you say, well, I'm 55, let's retire at 65, let's retire in 10 years. And I say, then what I do is I do a debt analysis statement to see exactly where your debt was. How much debt do you own? Okay? So what I would do, I'll say, Bernard, if you're making $250,000 a year, if you were completely debt free, could you live off $150,000 a year? If you couldn't, I'll show you how to do it. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to take $100,000 out of your salary every year. Okay? And I'm going to put it into a whole life insurance policy.
Oh, that's you.
No, it's life insurance policy. Life insurance, okay? So after 10 years, I'm going to say, Bernard, here's your life insurance policy. It has $1 million cash value associated with it. What we're going to do, I'm going to give you the cash out of this. I'm going to give you your money back because you've already paid for your company. You can walk away now. And guess what? It's tax free. I'm going to save your company back to yourself, back to you, tax free for $1 million. It's legal. It's legal.